Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Paul. How are you?
I'm very well, Andy, and welcome all to our Football Book Corner. Would you believe it? It's episode 12
Wow.
this evening. Incredible, isn't it? Where do the weeks, the months, the years go, mate?
God, goodness knows. And now we're at the business end, as they call it, the season, aren't we, in May? It's incredible, isn't it?
SRBMedia.
But we've covered so many books, haven't we? During our 11 so far. We usually go on for about an hour and a half. It's, plus extra added time. But briefly, let's just start, tell the listeners, just introduce them to My Football Books and how they can connect with you at your website. You do your monthly newsletter, etc., etc. So, first of all, the floor is yours for 5 to 6 minutes.
Yeah, excellent. So, at the core of what I do, is the website. So it's myfootballbooks.com. So the website I created for football book lovers out there, and it's basically an online library of recommended reads, but also the latest releases of football books and also books that's coming soon. And the way the website's built, it's built into categories. So whether you're looking for a football book on your club or the international team, history, grounds, players, managers, you name it. Every aspect of the beautiful game's covered. And I'm on social media across Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I've now got over 12,000 followers, actually. You mentioned the magic 12, which is incredible. And as you say, I also do a monthly newsletter. And through the website, I also sell merchandise, so My Football Books mug and My Football bookmark. And also, if I could use this opportunity just to let you know announce that at the start of May, I launched a Patreon as well, which I know you guys do. Yes. And I'm a patron of yourselves.
Yeah.
I launched a Patreon as well for readers, authors and publishers to support basically the creation of what I do and maintain what I do as well. So, if people are interested, obviously look on the website for more information. But that's it in a nutshell as an introduction.
So on your Patreon page, what is it? How do people subscribe to it? And what content do you put on there that's different to what you put on your social media?
Thank you for asking. So I've got three. There's a Patreon for a reader, an author, and publisher. So just it starts off from just £2 a month. So as a reader, you get I send a complimentary My Football bookmark for anyone that does subscribe. And what I'll do is you get early access to any feature articles that I publish before it's shared via social media, and also a heads up of football books that's coming soon, which I would share in advance of again on the website or on newsletters. But also. What I'm doing as well is a monthly football book giveaway. So any reader patrons, they'll be entered into a draw for themselves, a draw to win a football book every month. It'll be a newly released book as well. And on top of that, a 10% discount on any orders through the merchandise, mugs and bookmarks, etc. So, and for the author, slightly different, but basically, if you've got a book that's coming out, we'll do a feature, or I will do a feature on the website, and again, I'll do some book promotion to help get your word out there through our social media channels. Add yourself to your book to the website, and specialise it to where you want to buy it, and that's the same for publishers as well. So, for how many books you have that's coming out per month.
Fantastic. So go through it again. Your first tier is, what is it for tier one?
It's reader patron.
Yeah.
And that's just £2 a month. And then author patron. And that's for just £5 a month. And then publisher patron, which is £8 a month. So the publisher, I'll share up to 5 books every month, doing a feature of all of them. So really to get the word out there. And the aim is, of course, as well as, I suppose, helping me, again, create content and, cover all the various maintenance costs, let's say. It helps, really to spread the word of the books, really. As we know, as we've covered in these now 12 podcasts, there's so many great books out there, and it's just giving them a platform, and that's hopefully what I do, really, through our podcasts and also through the social media channels, to get the word out there, because there's so many great stories to be told.
Absolutely.
They're always being created every day, and I'm sure some more will be created in the month of May this year, will be written about in the next few months and years down the line. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So for £2, for £5, for £8, the £8 is going to appeal more to people that are authors of books, isn't it? Because that's what you're looking for, and, you know, trying to promote those books, and the £2 for anybody really that just likes enjoying and reading books.
Yeah, and really anyone who just wants to support the work we do, because the main idea of when I did this was to give a platform for people if they're interested in foot books and don't know where to look, because when I did it previously, it wasn't easy to find. So I'm hoping I've filled a gap, let's say, and just obviously it's anyone that wishes to support, then it's much appreciated. It just helps me continue to do what I do.
Absolutely, Andy, because you do a fantastic job.
I know
a bloke smoke up your backside every month and every episode of our football book podcast with Andy Satterwell from myfootballbooks.com. But you do such a fantastic job. I wouldn't have known of most of the books that I've seen, and it's only through your social media interaction. I look up. I don't share everything because we have got a group as well, a football book corner group. So I then share the books that I like into there, and the same on my social medias. If I like a book, if a book appeals to me, I go, wow, I like that. And that's what I do as well with our podcast, because, you know, you're the one that is the book knowledge. You're the one that reads the books. You're the one that knows, and you have books sent to you. And guys, if you do want to send Andy a book, please do. Obviously, he's not going to have time to read them all. Don't bother sending it to me, because I'll never read them. I'm absolutely useless. I still ain't done, Grandpa, what was football like in the 70s yet. But I do like to buy them. I do like to collect them. But again, for me, it's just books that I like. And I do podcasts with certain authors, and we've done quite a few podcasts as well with authors to promote their football books. So I think we cover a lot of ground with what you do, what we do together and individually. What genre of football books appeals to you mainly and mostly, Andy?
That's a good question. Well, I always one that sticks out to me. I've always, for some reason, as I've got older, I've always had a bit of an interest in history. So if I ever read anything outside of football books, it would be probably some in history in whatever avenue. So if you put in the football books, football book history, you know, that talks about the game from the early days, etc. There's so many great stories, and as you said, there's so many stories out there which I, through doing this project, or whatever you want to call it, I found out more books that I never knew existed, and there's so many great stories of how it started, not just here, but across the world, and there's so many individual stories as well. So I love books like that. There's a couple of books that stick out in mind that really suit me. Like there's a book called Origin Stories by a guy called Chriis. He does a great blog, Outside Right, and that's a great book. It talks about the pioneers who took football to the world. So does that make sense? So, anything that's around the history and football, I love. But I enjoy all books pretty much. So there's some really interesting books you read about teams that you never knew as well. So not necessarily teams I follow, but some great stories out there. So because there's a human element to a lot of, as we know, in football, isn't there? So
absolutely,
it's such a passionate game for so many people, especially at this time of season as well. So there's tears, laughter, and everything, isn't there? You have to all the emotions. There's many people
bombs
now.
And rockets and
oh god, yeah.
all sorts at the moment, especially and I suppose more prevalently in foreign countries, mainly Europe, but South America is another place that they do like the rocket launcher, the football ground.
They do. I must admit, that's one area I do like actually reading. If you read some of the South American books, about River Plate, Boca Juniors, etc. Some of they are fanatical. Sometimes you watch some footage, don't you? And you wonder how they can see the game before they can, everything that's coming down from the stands. So,
but there's been a few posts that I've looked at in social media where they've shown the I think in particular it was the River Plate Stadium when they recently beat Boca Juniors, and all you could see was smoke. It was an unbelievable bit, and I've seen it replicated. I think in a Greek ground, in a Turkish ground, and absolutely, they go ballistic. I think the Greeks are still looking for a venue for their the equivalent to the FA Cup final, aren't they? Because it does tend to get a little bit rowdy. But there you go. Can I start with a book? Because I've written down 14 books that I've seen you promote. You're going to be the guy that's the lead, and I'm just going to play second in command. But you did touch upon history. We did cover this on the Curran View with Terry Curran in our book corner slot, and it's Taking No Prisoners, The Legend of Frank Barson by John Harding. Who's Frank, and what's the synopsis about that book?
Oh, well, that's it was a hard man from many, many years ago. So, written by John Harding. I'm going off the top of my head a little bit here, but he's a legendary figure. I remember his story. His job. Well, obviously in these times, back in the 1920s, it would have been. He works on a factory floor, and he became a footballing giant. Basically, he lifted the fortunes of the likes of Aston Villa and also Manchester United, and he earned more caution than anyone had ever seen before. So yellow cards and whatever. But he was born, I think in Sheffield, I remember. So, and he had a very much a recognisable, no nonsense kind of football style. So I couldn't imagine it'd last very long, today, because you can get a yellow card for anything, can't you, nowadays? But,
I don't know. The referee last night didn't. I think Madrid, the one fella at the back, I can't remember his name, begins with an M. And I did last night because I was calling him all sorts. I could not believe how he still stayed on the pitch. And I thought at one stage the referee had forgot to bring his cards out in the first half. But going back to Frank, if the referee did bring his cards with him, he probably wouldn't have lasted 10 minutes unless he had that referee from last night.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely familiar. He was infamous hard man, and certainly set the standard in terms of focused aggression, let's say. So, players like Norman Hunter, let's say Roy Keane, they've since tried to emulate that kind of player, but that's long gone, isn't it nowadays, really? But yeah, great story and a legendary figure. So,
do you know what position he played?
Off from memory, I'm pretty sure he was midfield, if I remember rightly. I think so. I've gone a little bit off memory, so he was frequently... The reason why I think he was a ruthless tackler and quite an intelligent player as well, so I don't think he was in defence. He was a good footballer as well, so don't take that away as well. And, he was very much a leader as well.
Have you ever heard of him, Andy?
No, never.
No, I hadn't.
No, I hadn't at all. So, and that's the beauty of books, isn't it? It brings them to life.
Absolutely, yeah, it does.
So he would have been really famous in the time, 1920s. Football followers, obviously Villa fans and United fans would have known about him. But no, not someone I knew of. I love the front cover of that book as well. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it looks great.
There's something great about the cover. Yeah, Taking No Prisoners. It stands out, doesn't it?
But there's a few books about former Villa greats of the past, isn't there? With associated with the war years and many years ago. I mean, Andy, was it Ducat, the cricket player, and the footballer? I mean, again, I've bought the book because it interests me. One of these days, I'm actually going to read it. But I'd not heard of the fella before I looked at it on your social medias, and I thought, oh, that looks like a nice book, and then I went and bought it, and there are so. I mean, there's a book 1923, isn't there, of 100 years ago? So I'm guessing that Frank would appear in that book in some capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, he would do. Yeah, so that really captures the moment of 100 years ago. So obviously times it with that, and it's just even the front cover of that particular book, you see everyone in the flat caps, don't you?
Great.
And it's just it's wonderful, isn't it? A wonderful image.
Where did we go wrong?
I know good question. I haven't got the answer. So, but yeah, amazing, really amazing. So I think of 1923 as well. There was another book when you link it to Aston Villa called The Armistead Killing.
That's the one.
I don't know if you've seen that one. Yeah, that's the death of a guy called Tommy Ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the life of the man who basically shot him. But it was a dramatic story, and Tommy Ball was a key member of Aston Villa's 1923 All-Star team, and but yeah, he was killed by, I think it was a neighbour of his, or his landlord and a neighbour. Yeah, on the evening of Armistead in 1923, a tragic story. But again, brought to life through the likes of authors. So, but yeah, some wonderful stories from that time.
And that's why it's so important for the authors because the authors aren't making a lot of money. There's not that many people that are going to buy these kind of books. I always say I make podcasts that people don't really want to listen to because, they're podcasts that interest me about players that interested me when I was a kid. So like legends of the 70s, etc., etc. So I love to listen to their stories, but most of the modern day kids would go, in Story Moore, who's he? They'd go, Alan Ball, who would he be? I mean, I haven't done one with Alan Ball, sadly he passed away before I started doing the podcast.
Yeah.
But the likes of, Alan Hudson and Charlie George and these great players that we grew up watching and loving, kids of today don't really know who they are, and their heroes couldn't lace the boots of these gods of yesteryear. And so the same could be said of these heroes of 100 years ago. And I guess the thing is, when we got brought up watching football and playing football, it was ingrained in our culture. These days, I don't think the kids are like us. They tend to just support players. There's me saying that. I like to watch Manchester City because of Jack Grealish. But they play on their game consoles, etc. So I don't think they've got that connection with football as we were connected. Yeah. And because of that, because of the love that we had, we look at things in the past just as glorious as what we look at them players that we grew up loving.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there was a certain, there's a connection really to the, you feel a real connection to the club. Quite a lot of clubs that were owned by the local businessmen, weren't they? And the players, you could, there's a great book always springs to mind called When Footballers Were Skint. And there's stories about players on there that are on the bus going home with the fans.
Yeah.
You couldn't just even... And that's Jack Grealish, he just couldn't do it because of the fame, and now that's how football's changed, isn't it? It's always been an entertainment sport, but it's now a different kind of entertainment, isn't it? So with a global reach.
It tends to be a boring entertainment. Many times I watch games of football now. But going back to kids of today, I mean, how many kids of today actually read football books of players of yesteryear or historic content in football? And that's why I love the older books, because I do love the historical content and that affection with football.
I think you'll be probably surprised, actually. I think there's definitely been, over the last, what would I say, probably the last 5 or 10 years, there's been a massive increase in the popularity of football books, and more football books than ever before.
Yeah.
And you can link it back to the likes of Nick Hornby, his book A Fever Pitch of Arsenal. Yeah. Obviously that was turned into a film as well. There was something about a book that suddenly was like, oh, okay, what's this? And it kind of created a new kind of writers, let's say, out there as well. So it's just gone, it's just getting bigger and bigger. And there's quite a lot of young authors actually out there that you see quite often, like the Armistead Killing. I'm not sure how the age of the author of that book, Colin Browne, but there's quite a lot of books that have come out recently. It's their first book. and they're of a reasonably young age kind of thing. So it's definitely more popular than it ever was, and it's kind of coincided with I think the growth of football as well. I think there's so many stories, isn't there?
Yeah, good,
and I think when you asked about what am I interested in history, I think it's when you look back as well. You think, crikey, what it used to be like to what it is now. It's just it's like day and night, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, because I suppose again, it's like you have so many muppets that work in the media these days as pundits, and I've heard a number of them being told about our player who is a legend, and these certain pundits don't even know who they are, and you just think it's quite incredible how stupid some of these pundits are. They're not very good pundits, and their knowledge of football is so poor it's beyond comprehension. It's almost as though they only actually played football because they were half decent. I'm not saying that they were good at it, because I watched them play and I don't think they were good, but somebody decided that they were good enough to offer them a contract and like cut out a career.
I think probably when we were younger, let's say, probably back, there wasn't so much football on the tally, was there, and things like that. So you probably you had the top real like your John Mott, I'm thinking of the commentators, John Motts and Barry Davies and whatever. But now there's so many channels of footballs everywhere. You've got everyone's got a force, haven't they? Everyone's got a point of it's 24/7. So Talk Sport, they have to fill the hours, don't they? And I must admit, so much of it. It's a growing of mine where you talk about he's now on the biggest record ever, but we're just talking about the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hold on, you forget. So thankfully, Dixie Dean is getting mentioned, it seems now, because people are realising, I think Haaland, which is a great player, absolutely, but, Dixie Dean, that was before Premier League, and his record is incredible. And then Harry Kane, and then I think they were saying about, you think of Jimmy Greaves.
Yeah.
So I think it's just how the game's just got so more popular, and there's that social media as well. It creates a lot of noise, doesn't it?
It certainly
does.
Yeah, it certainly does. But I think it would be even better, if they was to talk about the older players of yesteryear more often, more frequently, as then people would look and go, I've never heard of him before. What did he do? Did he play? I'll go and find a book and I'll read about him, and that's where I'm going. So hopefully these football fans will source players of yesteryear, go and have a look if there's a book, and read the book, read all about it. Joe Araf, the Mitropa Cup, the Forgotten Cup. That seems a very exciting book. It's one that took my fancy.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was it's written by a guy called Joe Araf, that actually did a book on the Austrian team called Wonder Team.
Yeah.
But it's the Forgotten Cup about the Mitropa Cup, which basically it was during the interwar years, but it came out. Oh, sorry, when it was played. And it's basically like the equivalent almost of today's Champions League, really. It's a really great dip into stories that, again, we're unknown of. I think the book covers the period from 1920, the interwar years, up to 1939, 1940. So I'm just struggling. I had it somewhere in front of me. So
did it die out because of the war, Andy? Is that why the Mitropa Cup finished?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because of there's certainly the rise of obviously what was happening, of course, was the Hitler and all of that. Yeah, it happened with the Second World War, really. So I think that brought the end of it. So I've not read the book myself, so that's why I'm a little bit unsure. So I've only got round to it yet. It came out, I think, was it last week or maybe the week before? Yeah, but it looks fascinating, really. It does. It features some of the likes of Matthias Sindelar, so there might be names you recognise.
Yeah, Sindelar. Yeah.
Joseph Beacon as well. So
didn't he score some goals when we're talking about great scorer Biscan?
He did.
Days. Have you got that book?
I have. Yes, I have.
Yeah, I can say, because it's a book it's on my shopping list. I look at things like that and I think, what a great book that looks. I've got to get that.
I haven't glanced through it, so it's fascinating stories like drawn from a lot of research from Italian, Hungarian, because it's based the Metropa Cup was based very much on Central Europe, so it was Italy, Hungary, Austria, Czechoslovakia. So a lot of the research for the book was from those newspapers around that time. So, but there's very much I know there's a detailed look at the social political context. So, as you said, about the Hitler's election, the coup, and the outbreak of World War II, and the Holocaust, and whatever is covered in there as well. So the details, how the club comes in evolved really.
Because football really was a strong hold around the cafe bars of Vienna, wasn't it? Yeah. Football really was, in the heartlands there, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and then you got the rise of the Germans and the Czechoslovakians, etc., etc. So, then that Central Europe really was a hub of football, and Italy, of course. Yes. The great Torino team that sadly, on the 4th of May 1949, where the plane carrying them back from Lisbon, the wing hit the wall of the Basilica and crashed into the Superga hills above Turin. Now, they were a team that, had the European Cup been about in the 40s, then it possibly wouldn't have been Real Madrid that was known as the first... what's the word I'm looking for? Because when we're looking at these sides, Newcastle were, Aston Villa were, they were super clubs. But when you look at on a European field, it's a different level, isn't it? So you can be fantastic in your own country, but when you start playing European competition like the Metropa Cup and then the European Cup, you're elevated, aren't you? So Madrid were elevated for that 5 year of domination. Now, if they'd have had that in the 40s, we would be looking at the great Grande Torino in exactly the same light. And it was a game in 1947 against Hungary where they had 10 players representing Italy from the Torino side. So, again, wonderful football history, and the Metropa Cup, that looks like a fantastic read.
Yeah, and it covers, I know as well, some, not just the players, also some of the great coaches. Bela Gutman is the name that you'll know of, I'm sure. One of the coaches who went on a tremendous book that is, on his own greatest comeback. Yeah. He went, obviously, but he won the European Cup twice.
He didn't curse them as well.
Yeah.
He cursed them, didn't he?
Yes, that's it, yeah.
He wanted to pay rise and Benfica wouldn't give it him, and he cursed them.
That's it.
In fact, Eusebio went, didn't he, to try and lift the curse many years after. But,
great story.
And he also done a lot of coaching in Brazil, didn't he, Bela Gutman? I mean, him and, oh my days.
You're going to,
Torino,
you referred.
Torino's manager, his name will come back to me. His name will come back to me
as well in a minute.
But they were both on the way to a concentration camp where they decided to do one, and then Torino come out of that, and the great Benfica etc. come out of that as well. And these stories are phenomenal stories.
They are
stories that need to be told.
Yeah, absolutely. He was Bela Gutman. His stories are incredible just on its own. He was literally in a Nazi labour camp, wasn't he? He was tortured. And it was amazing. He survived, the Holocaust really, and got out of that. And it's just an incredible story. But you talk about life stories. Wow, that really is a life story to be talked about. Definitely.
Absolutely. What else have you got for us, Andy?
Okay, well, I'll mention a book because I know we talk about latest releases, but I'll talk about a book I did read recently.
Yeah.
Which because of the time of the FA Cup as well, I read the FA Cup When It Really Mattered. Yes. It's a book that's been out for a few years, but he did a great trilogy of books covering the 1960s, the 1970s, and the 1980s as well. And as I say, the subtitle of the book was When the FA Cup Really Mattered. And I've been away. I went abroad and I decided to take that book with me for whatever reason. So it's fresh in my mind. And the 1970s is called From Ronnie Radford to Roger Osborne. And I know you're a big fan of the 70s, and you think of some of the stories during that time. It's incredible, really. And some of the cup finals, Well, I share a lot of on my website from the social media about on this day. And it's around about this time you say on these days, 50 years ago, etc. You got the great finals, such as Sunderland when they beat Leeds in 73. Amongst that, but really great read, and I recommend people, if you want to know about, and the FA Cup really was magical, definitely. So I think it has it's come back a little bit over the years, but not quite to the standard as it used to be. The whole event, the whole day, wasn't it? When I think about when I was younger, I think
the whole event could still be what it was, because we've actually got the channel now, Sky, that could give all that coverage, because it was the day coverage to the FA Cup, but they don't. The biggest problem these days is that the League of Greed, the Premier League, has swallowed up everything, and as a consequence, in the FA Cup, most teams these days field an understrength side, which I think is an absolute disgrace. I'd either boot them out of the Cup, dock league points, so you've got to find a way of sorting this out, because the FA Cup was that special. It's one of the few cups that they gave a lid to keep that magic in there. And there is a great book, The Cup. In fact, I did a podcast a couple of years ago when it come out, probably about 18 months ago it come out now, The Cup. It wasn't called the FA Cup, it was just called The Cup.
It was.
Again, fantastic read, isn't it? Some great stories. It does state that it's pictorial, but it isn't. There's some fabulous stories in there.
Yeah, I think I've said this before, but I know it says a pictorial celebration. But I think that probably downtones the book. I think some of the stories in it, the written words from the author Richard Whitehead is one of the best books I've read in a long time. So I know it was shortlisted for the Sunday Times Sports Book Awards 2023. So
and Richard is a great writer. Great writer, isn't he, Richard?
He is.
And it's one of them kind of coffee table books, isn't it? It's more than a book. It's a work of art.
But for that reason, though, I don't leave it out, because I know with my brothers, I know one of my brothers, he would straight away pinch it and I'd never see it again. So it's a coffee table book, but make sure,
make sure you buy your own book to put on your coffee table and not mine.
Exactly. Because if it's gone, someone will say, "Oh, can I have a look at that and borrow it?" Because it is one of those books, and you'll never see it again. So,
and again,
there you go.
If you do go onto our socials, you can see, or Spotify or any of the major outlets for podcasts. I did a podcast with Richard where we talked about his book and his love for Aston Villa as well, and there's some great Villa stories in there, as West Bromwich Albion. There is no story about my team, Birmingham City, because we've never bloody won it.
You got to the finals, didn't you?
31 and 56.
Manchester City.
31 and 56. Yeah, I mean, going back to Hitler, I do blame him for invading Poland, because, of course, the star of the day was Bert Trautmann, and there is a wonderful book about Bert, isn't there? Because he was a member of Hitler's youth.
Yeah, wonderful. Another incredible story. And there's, again, there's a video, a documentary that came out some years ago called The Keeper. But his is an incredible story, isn't it? And he was obviously a Nazi soldier, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So, and then came to here, and clearly at that time, when he came over just at the end of the war, he was hated, absolutely hated. Yeah. But it was his football prowess that won the people over, Man City, and then he's just got into legendary status playing that cup final with a broken neck.
Yes, Spud Murphy went in.
Yeah,
he went in with a challenge with Bert Trautmann, and he just knocked his neck, and it broke a bone in his neck. I mean, he didn't snap his neck. He had got a broken neck, but he played on, and that was the year of the Revy plan, of course, and Manchester City ran out 3-1 winners.
Yeah, that's it. No, great story. Great story.
What else has been tickling your fancy, mate?
Yeah, so that's books I've been looking. So I've maybe just mentioned some of the more recent books that have come out. So I like books I've been sent and I feature them. So a book that I've been sent is called Crossing the Park. It's by a guy called Peter Kenny Jones, and it's about the men who dared to play both Liverpool and Everton. It's some quite staggering stories when I think of some of the players that have had like, arm protection, etc. Nick Barmby, for one, if you remember him.
Yes.
But a good player, but he was absolutely hated when he made the move across. So basically, the book shares the history of Liverpool and Everton, but it's told through the lives. So I think it's about 34 players, and it talks about the complex rivalry, the love-hate relationship, and how that's gone and up and down, etc. over the years. But there's also a respect there. They're two great clubs, aren't they?
Oh,
and two theatres, I would call them, Anfield and Goodison Park. It's such a shame when Goodison Park goes, but anyway, that's a separate subject. It's a delightful recount of the stories of the good and the bad and the ugly, the Dons both blue and red, how the rivalry's changed and the politics and often been involved in some of the transfers.
Hated, though? Because, a number of players have crossed Stanley Park. Why Nick Barmby? Why was he so hated? What did he do?
It was just a case of, I think, I'm trying to remember which way around it. Yeah, he went from Everton to Liverpool, that was it. So, I'm trying to remember what it was. Just streets down there, but he was, for whatever reason, he was hated because he'd left Everton, at such a time. They loved him, he was a good player there, and he just suddenly gone over to the other side.
But that's what Liverpool wanted him, because he was a good player. If he was a crap player, they wouldn't have wanted him.
Well, true, yeah. He went for a fee of about 6... Sorry?
I suppose love and hate, because he was so loved, was probably the reason why he was so despised.
That's it. And it's just that. It's because Everton a good club at that time, back in, would have been early 2000s, and...
Sheedy was a Liverpool player, wasn't he, that went to Everton?
He was.
But I think Sheedy was more of a reserve player, wasn't he? So because they didn't want him, they went to Everton, got a game, and then you haven't got that same impact with the fans, have you? Like with Barnsley, clearly he was the start, and then he's gone to Liverpool. But,
there's probably only one player that was liked by both, and that was Peter Beardsley. He was arguably loved by both sides. So what a player he was. Merseyside as well as opposite Newcastle and England. So, so that's Crossing the Park by Peter Kenny Jones, another great author. He's done a number of books on history. So he did one on, his first book was Liddell at 100.
Yeah.
So
the story of Billy Liddell.
Yeah, that's where you'll know it from. So he wrote the book
of Billy Liddell. He was, wasn't he, Billy Liddell?
Exactly.
One of Liverpool's all-time greats. In fact, when Birmingham beat Liverpool 9-1 in 1954, yes, kids, 9-1 in 1954, Billy Liddell was Liverpool's goal scorer that day.
Yeah, no, it's a great book, that in itself. It's called Billy Liddell at 100, that particular book, by the same author. Yeah. And it's basically like a family portrait of, an icon, wasn't he? Absolute icon.
Yeah.
During those years. Other books that were released recently. Again, that book was out from Pitch. Another one that's come out from Pitch is called The Conquerors by a gentleman called Dev Bajwa.
Yeah.
And it basically charts the rise, fall, and resurgence of Aston Villa, I was about to say, AC Milan. Yeah, across one of the club's legendary areas. So it was when Carlo Ancelotti, made them world champions. And one of the things, Carlo, I remember reading in the book, it says some of the because he was a player there as well at AC Milan. He won Serie A twice. He won the European Cup twice as a player, Europa Super Cup. Then as a manager, he won the European Cup or Champions League now twice. The amount of trophies he won playing and managing AC Milan was incredible. I can't think of many managers. Yeah, I can't think of many managers that have done both playing and manager at one club and won so many trophies. There's not many that springs to mind I can think of. So
and other clubs as well. I mean, Carlo's had a fantastic career in football. I mean, has there been a biography or an autobiography about Carlo?
That has, yeah, that came out a while back. Really good book. I'm just trying to remember. So it was yeah, that was it. It's Quiet Leadership. It was the subtitle of the book, and it basically, I'm trying to remember who wrote it. I'll come back to it in a minute. But yeah, really good. It's a biography, basically. Not so it's a biography. Basically, it's told about his whole life story. It came out, I'm trying to think, probably about 10 years ago now. Maybe not that, maybe 5 years ago. But really, really, really good book, actually. It got a lot of accolades at the time when it came out.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think he had 5 Champions League titles to his name about that time. It ain't bad going, is it?
The only thing,
really?
the only thing is with someone like with Carlos, is that the book's been written 10 years ago, and Ancelotti has still won an awful lot in that time. So, there's probably going to be an updated version if and when he actually retires. Because, I mean, he's still not that old, is he?
I know, he can't be that old, because he played him in the Milan team in the 90s or 80s, 90s, wasn't it?
I remember Ancelotti playing,
Yeah, so he doesn't look like he's changed that much, does he?
No, he doesn't actually.
Slightly greyer on top.
He's worn very well. I mean, I think he aged a little bit last night over 90 minutes.
Yeah. I think he aged also when he was at Goodison Park.
That'd age anyone, wouldn't it? Could be worse. It could be at St Andrews.
Yeah, absolutely. But well, sorry to any Evertonians that are listening, but I just can't believe they managed to get Ancelotti as a manager, and the fact that he obviously, anyway, that's another story for another time, isn't it? But yeah, that's called The Conquerors, anyway, that book, and it's about, it's an ode to, he's chart topping AC Milan side at that time, really. A couple of others, again, I've been sent recently. There's a book called Out of the Wilderness, and these are very different stories, I like these. But it's by it's about a guy called Clive Holt, who was the Burnley FC director, and basically he was linked to the club for an unbelievable. Again, we talk about the olden times. He was linked to the club for 35 years.
Yes.
So it's a chock full of like anecdotes and untold stories. Okay. He was pretty much called Mr. Burnley.
What era? And who did you say wrote that?
So it's wrote with a guy called Dave Thomas. So
he's written a lot of Burnley books.
He has, well, he's written over 20 books, I think, or so.
Yeah, he wrote that one about Bob Lord, didn't he?
He did, that's it, yeah, you've got it, yeah. So Clive Holt, the director, collaborated with Dave Thomas on that. But he left the board, Clive Holt did, in, I think it's about 2020, I think it was, when they were bought by an American company.
Yes.
But great stories, and just, great stories about, he went everywhere, and there's pictures in it as well. He went to these, which is really quite odd, but he went to the camper van with his wife to a lot of the games as well. So, you see it on the front cover, you think, what's that about then? But he went to the away games, and, he was a fan as well as obviously being a director. So, really interesting story.
We were talking about that early doors, wasn't we, in the podcast, and how football has changed, but you still up till recently had directors that cared, that were fans, and would go to away games in a camper van with the missus. She must have been a very understanding wife.
Yeah. Oh, but the wife, his wife.
Well, we're assuming it's his wife.
Yeah. She is pictured in the book, so I'm assuming she is. But travelled to all the games. Yeah, this huge. And by the way, the van I'm talking about, it's like a huge motorhome. It's went to every game, whether it was in the old 4th division when he first started, and right to the Premier League, he went to this motorhome. So just incredible. Yeah,
that sounds like.
I know. Yeah, just lovely stories, isn't it? So
there aren't many stories like that, is there? And you look at all the football clubs all around the world.
Yeah.
There can't be many stories about a director go and see away games in a camper van with his missus.
Great, isn't it? Yeah, I love it. Yeah, absolutely. And some of the stories, though, just from inside the boardroom, he's literally 35 years, and a club like Burnley as well. They've had a great history, but they've gone some great times, haven't they, over the last 5 years or so. I know they're obviously coming back now to the Premier League. He must have seen some things. I think, crikey, football ain't half changed in this time. So, but great book, Out of the Wilderness, that's called. And the forward of that book's by Sean Dyche as well. So,
okay.
So great book. Also another one, if you want me to interject if you've got any time, but another one that came out in April was The Lionesses. There was bound to be a book come out about it after the emphatic victory in the 2022 Women's Euros. And this is by, he's got the same surname, last name, Abdullah. He has written other books as well. So it's called, Lionesses, subtitled Game Changers. And it's just getting an insight into the key players in the squad, and just a tactical analysis, really, of the concepts and the tale of the coach. She's still a coach. I mean, she's still a coach. Serena Wagner. I think she's Dutch. So, just talks about the plans, how it came about, and the stories involved. And great story. A great time, wasn't it? It really put, again, women's football's got steadily and steadily. You certainly see more books, I've noticed, coming out more and more. The game, it'll always be different to the men's game. I think it's always unfair to compare it sometimes, because
it's not comparable.
Yeah, it's not, and that's no fault of, the late or anything like that. We don't do the same, do we, so much with tennis. So I don't know why we do it with football, kind of thing. It's just different.
Do you know what I think it is? Yeah. I think the women try and compare to the men. Now, whether it's them that do it, or whether it's the media that are driving the narrative, I think you're right. And then they just go along with it. But it's not Ellen White's fault that she's talked about. If she scored another goal, she would be the leading England goal scorer of all time. No, you play in the women's team, love. You don't play in the men's team. It's a separate game. It's almost a completely different game, and they're brilliant in their own right. What annoys it? Does it tell you how they can fill a stadium at Wembley with only 77,000? That's a great feat, that is. I mean, if you're looking at the men's game, FA Cup final or whatever, Wembley Stadium, if it's a sellout, there's 90,000 that turn up. Yeah, there's not a spare seat. Well, women can actually fill Wembley with 77,000.
Really?
It's incredible. I mean, I don't know if you know.
Not sure I ever did that.
But I don't know how they do it. But it's always classed as a sellout. They've sold out, no tickets, and then you look at the attendance, world record 77,000. I'm going, but old 90. Where's your 13,000 missing fans? But nobody ever, and that's what annoys me with the women's game. I'm a big fan of football, and a big fan I used to do with Birmingham City Ladies before it was the women.
I remember you saying,
I used to be the stadium announcer there at Birmingham. I'd give up a good couple of 3 years or more.
Excellent.
All free, just give up my time as a volunteer. Thoroughly enjoyed it, loved every minute of it. But that was back then, and since the money has come in, it's got a little bit more popular. Shippers, bless him, said it had changed, and it has changed. And I do think that I'd like to see more balance, if I'm honest. So, we've sold these tickets, but we've given away lots to corporate, etc., etc. Because if you're a kid and you want to go and watch the Lionesses or a women's game, and it's sold out, how can you buy that ticket? And then when it's 77,000, you think, 13,000, I could have had that ticket, there's 13,000, and turned up. It's not right, it ain't fair, it needs sorting out, but there's no one in the media that's got the balls to address it, and that's the problem where I don't like the imbalance of anything. But there you go.
Absolutely.
That's my
point. You're right, and they still have the same. When you think about that winning goal, if you remember, it was Chloe Kelly, I think it was.
Fantastic,
the emotion, it's the same in the men's. It's the same, isn't it? The emotion, scoring, it's the same as the women's and men's. It's brilliant. The emotion, scoring a goal, there's nothing better, is there?
And I like them. I like the Lionesses. I mean, it annoys me the wokeness of it all, and if I'm honest, it puts me off. And I haven't watched it for some time, only for that reason. I'm sick and tired of listening to these whingers telling us that if you don't watch it, you're sexist. You should watch it. It's a brilliant game. No. Let people watch it if they want to watch it. Stop ramming it down their throats and be honest. But, I mean, I like Georgia Stanway. I think she's a great player. I love Ella Toon. I think she's a great player.
Yeah,
the girl up front from Man United.
Which is that back heel. That was a cracking goal. You remember that one? What a goal that was at Bramall Lane.
Yeah, I've watched them and I thought, absolute brilliant.
Yeah.
And I do think that they've got some really, really good players, but I just wish they'd stop going on. And it just puts me off.
Yeah, I know you mean.
Then you forget the names, you forget how good they are. But
Yeah, take it for what it is. Exactly. So, that's come out, and you've got the Women's World Cup coming up. So as well, I know there's a book coming up which I'll probably mention if I remember later on. But moving on, another book that's come out. I think I might have mentioned this on one of your with Terry Curran. I might remember, but it's called McMaster and Commander: The Business of Winning.
No, I don't think we've had that one yet.
Okay, I might be thinking of something else. So it's written by it's written by called John McMaster, who played in the Aberdeen team, but won the Gothenburg Greats. They won the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1983, wasn't it? Yeah, 40 years ago. So so it's about him, and it tells about his years, but also working under the likes of Sir Alex Ferguson. And that's come out through Morgan Lawrence Publishing Services.
Okay, yeah.
Really great little book as well. So again, a player I'd not really familiar of or couldn't recall really until I started reading it. So, but a great anecdotes and stories in there.
They've published a few books recently, haven't they?
They have, yeah. They have, yeah. It's the guy. Matthew Mann, I think it is.
Yes, that's
that have set it up. Yeah. So I think it's Leicester based, so not far from where I'm originally from.
Point, isn't it? Has got something to do with it, the old Leicester director.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. They published Barry Pierpont's book as well. That came out a few years ago. So, but yeah, that's McMaster and Commander: The Business of Winning. So that came out in April. And it's written alongside a number of other authors: David Christie, Neil Martin, and Robin McCoulson. I might have pronounced that wrong. So that's another book to look out for, certainly for any Aberdeen fans out there as well, and fans of the 80s. And what a great team that was. I'll mention a couple of others from April that came out. There was one quite topical. When it came out, it was exactly the same time as Graham Potter lost his job, or is having his problems at Chelsea, but it's called Potter Hot Cut and the Desk in East London. And it basically talks about his rise when he was managing in the Swedish 4th Division. Yeah. And he took a team called, I've got to try and pronounce this, but
I'd rather
actually, I'm going to go with the initials OFK. I think they're better now. So that's easier. Yeah. And he took them from the Swedish 4th Division to the Europa League, Graham Potter. So he did some great things. Obviously, that's what got him to fame, and that's why Brighton took him, didn't they? And he did well there. And then no one succeeds at Chelsea or given enough time, have they, at Chelsea? Doesn't seem.
I think this is the problem, isn't it? When you don't buy the players, and when you have too many players that come in, and you just think, well, how's that going to work? And clearly it didn't. And, good luck to the new manager that comes into Chelsea, because they've got one hell of a job to... I mean, they've got some great players, but they've got a lot of sorting out. But let's hope that Potter gets back in the game quickly. I'm sure he will. May have to go back to the Championship, bring a team up. Yeah, because that tends to happen. I think the higher that you go, the mightier that you fall, don't you? So to go to Chelsea there and then perceived a failure, I don't think he was a failure. But perceived a failure. Yeah,
maybe too early. It may be too early because he's done so well, and I think this story indicates how well he did. With a club, played in the Swedish football. He's took to Europa League. Yeah. It's and that's what's good about his book. It's a lot of the football fans.
But how'd you turn them down?
It's an underdog kind of story, isn't it?
How'd you turn down Chelsea? If you're Graham Potter and they offer you that job and all that money, etc., and what have you, how do you think? Well, okay, I'm doing well at Brighton, but if things don't go well, my better players have been sold. then we start going off the boil. I might get the sack next season because this is what happens in football. I got the gig there at Chelsea. I'm going to back myself. And you can't blame him for that. I think anybody would do that, and it just didn't quite happen for him. But good luck to Graham Potter. Apparently he's a nice kid, and made his league debut for Birmingham City as well. Solihull boy. Yeah.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. He's a local.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out while we was talking about Morgan and Morgan Lawrence. Publishers. 3 games in May and a 20-year oddity that defined Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United by Rob Carlos. Now, I've done a podcast with Rob. Rob's a pal of mine. We grew up in a similar area in Birmingham. Yes, a similar age as well. He supports Aston Villa. I grew up supporting Birmingham City. I don't suppose I really support anyone these days. I just support football and love football. But and I said to Robbie in there, sometimes people think it's difficult when you're writing books about other clubs, but I think it's more. I think it's more enthralling and more encompassing because you're actually writing about something that you might not have known an awful lot about when you thought, I really like them. Then you start discovering things, and then you start putting the bits and pieces together. You're interviewing a few fans, and then all of a sudden, you have got that book, and I'm sure that's how it pretty much started with Rob when he watched that final. And the kind of the way that you look at it, until 3 games to go, they'd won nothing.
Yeah.
But I guess all teams, Man City, they've won nothing yet.
Yeah.
Nothing.
True.
If they beat Chelsea, they win the league. They play another game that they probably rest all the players in the league, but it usually is the last game of the season where you win the league, but they've won it a little bit earlier this season because Arsenal have faltered of late. But then you play in the FA Cup final, and then you win another cup, and then you've got the European. So I guess all teams that win the double or the treble win it in 2 games. Because up to that last game of the season and that game, they've actually won nothing.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Put yourself in the position, don't you, to win it.
Yeah, and I would add they could win it, the Premier League, if Forest beat Arsenal on Saturday, but you can all dream. Anyway,
well, you never know, because Arsenal, have fallen off a little bit now.
They have. But no, I do know that book, though, 3 games in May, so I think it was the anniversary just the other day, actually, the first one of the 3, obviously when they won the league. And they won it at Old Trafford. I think it was the first time they actually won the league at Old Trafford. I remember right in that particular one. Under Sir Alex Ferguson's tenure, for whatever reason, I think when he won the league, I might be wrong. Something vaguely that reminds me that that was also part of the story as well. That he always wanted to win the league at Old Trafford, and he did. And then came, I think, then it was the FA Cup, then the Champions League. I think it's that way around.
Yeah, it was. 100%. The FA Cup, then Europe.
Yeah, and I know that the book as well. Because the forwards by Steve Bruce, Neil Curtis.
Yes.
And every copy sold donated to Prostate Cancer UK as well. So it's all for a good need as well. That particular book.
Absolutely, and if you do want to listen to Rob talking about it, just access all the all the socials or the outlets, Spotify, Apple, etc. And look down for our SRBMedia and all our podcasts are there, and you can listen to Rob talking about his it's his first book. So good luck and well done to Rob, and thanks for your time making a podcast.
Yeah, well done. Excellent.
What else have we got?
Well, I'll refer back to another book that came out then last month in April. It was again through Pitch. They obviously, as you know, they produce a lot of books,
prolific.
And this one's it's the 3rd instalment of a trilogy by a guy called Neil Fitzsimon, and it's a trilogy on Chelsea FC. This one, the latest, is the rebirth of the Blues, and it's the rise of Chelsea Football Club in the mid-1980s. So we touched a little bit on, I think, a little bit Chelsea already, but it covers the areas of the club's history from 77 to 1985. So it recounts the bleak periods, because the club's financial problems always led to extinction at that time. And it describes the disastrous season they had in 82-83, where he just escaped falling through the trapdoor into the 3rd Division. And then talks of the summer that followed when the likes of Kerry Dixon, the great Kerry Dixon, Pat Nevin, those likes arrived at Stamford Bridge, and it started a new era. So yeah, it's part of a trilogy, and it's a memoir, a chronicle of a important part in the history of Chelsea, and quite different to what it is now, isn't it?
Yeah,
certainly
absolutely.
the last 10 years.
And I think a lot of mismanagement in them days as well. You know, you look at the way that the ownership of Chelsea was.
Ken Bates.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you look at some of the managers that he employed, and you look and you think, well, a lot of that is self-inflicted, and of course they sold Osgood and Alan Hudson in 1974 to finance that East Stand. You know, the ownership had changed from the Mears family to Ken Bates, and you know, I think Mr. Mears he did admit to Alan that he got carried away and he took his eye off the ball, and I think that's easy to do. And before you know where you are, Chelsea from being Doherty's Diamonds, and then you know Dave Sexton took them on, and they were the kings of the King's Road, won the first FA Cup, won the first Cup in Europe. You know, within a few years, certainly I think within 12 months of selling Alan Hudson and Peter Osgood, they were relegated to the 2nd Division. Bad management. Bad management.
Absolutely. One of his earlier books, I think it's called Rhapsody in Blue.
Oh, yes.
It talks about the early 70s.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
The joys. Yeah, they celebrate the times of Hudson and what have you. So, but yeah, Rebirth of the Blues is the latest one in that. So, and Ken Bates, he famously bought him for £1, didn't he, if I remember rightly, in 82. So,
I reckon he was overcharged.
Yeah. I always remember the story. I remember he threatened to put, because there was a bit of crowd trouble,
fences,
electric fences, So, until eventually it was pulled, wasn't it, the last minute by the FA. So I think there's some health and safety issues with doing that.
I mean,
which is just bonkers.
But again, I mean, and he was being deadly serious. I remember it in them days. I mean, he was serious. I'm going to put an electric fence around here to keep him off the pitch. Look, we know you need to keep him off the pitch, but do you not think that's a little bit too drastic? You know, I mean, you can erect a fence, but plugging it in is like, you're going to fry a few fans there, Ken. But again, that was Bates and, you know, what have you. But there you go.
Maverick, wasn't it?
Yeah, so, he was.
You don't have Mavericks like that anymore, you know, whether he was just mad. But great, though. Great, let's say, entertainment, let's say.
But again, I mean, you had Deadly Doug.
Owners.
Yeah, Deadly Doug at Villa. You had Batesy there, and you had Bob Lord. And, you know, going back, at least you could say the one thing about the owners, I wouldn't say that some of them necessarily cared. They cared more about the financial impacts and implications of rather than the football club. But there were a lot of people that genuinely were fans, made good, and bought football clubs out of their own money back in the day. And I think football was all the better for it.
Definitely. Excellent. I'll mention a couple of the books, and I'll do it balanced because I'll talk about one for Rangers, and I'll follow up by talking one for Celtic. So
77-78, is it Rangers?
That's one I'm not going to make. That's one that's coming out this month. I'll mention that for the next one. Yeah. So that's coming out next Monday, I think it is. But the one I was going to talk about was published last month. So there's a couple that's come out recently on Rangers. This one that came out in April was Our Rangers Heroes. And it's basically incredible stories of forgotten heroes from across the ages, written by a guy called Ian Hogg. It tells tales of a small number of more than 1,500 players that have worn the blue jersey of Rangers.
Who was the best?
What, sorry?
And who was the best?
Wow, I don't know. I think it's quite... this is not so much like... This is more the abstract kind of stories.
Got ya.
Because I'm just looking at here and reminding myself, there's a story about an orphan who was racially abused, football, an officer of the British Army, and against all odds, signed for Rangers during the Great War, only for service to end in tragedy. So some of the stories, I think, are more, not your well-known ones. There's one about a there's actually one of a fiery winger that was sent off at gunpoint. One man who was the ultimate standard bearer at Ibrox.
What was his name then? Got sent at gunpoint?
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't say that on here.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like things like that. They interest me.
Yeah, fascinating, aren't they? So
Slim Jim Baxter in there.
He probably is mentioned in there. Yeah, I've not got a full list of.
He went to Sunderland, didn't he? Sunderland, and then your team, Nottingham Forest.
Yes, he did. Yeah, Jim Baxter. Yeah. Absolutely. But there's another one I'm just reading here. Some great stories in here. But there's a Rangers, Everton, and Irish legend who went to his grave dogged by an unfounded and ultimately untruth allegations of sectarianism. So there's lots of different stories. So this is basically what that is. It's an incredible stories of forgotten Rangers heroes.
How
so
long are the stories? Are they a page or two, or they're not going to give a whole chapter to a story?
No, they are. Let's have a quick look.
Are they bite-sized little stories?
Yeah, I'm thinking so. So let me just have a look.
It would be a book that you wouldn't necessarily have to read from front to back or back. You could read it back to front or dip in, can't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So you've got stories, So it's breaking out into chapters. So you've got one chapter's titled The Swedish Scotsman, and then you've got one about the Ukrainian son of Olskanar. So I'm not sure what that's about.
Sheffield Wednesday have just gone 3-0 up.
Have they?
Curran's going to be phoning me in a bit.
How long's left? 20 minutes?
Yeah, 20 minutes. Great bit of skill as well. It was a great goal. Oh.
Yeah. And I don't know about, no allegiance. I do like Sheffield Wednesday. I don't know why. I just like Sheffield Wednesday as a club. Not that I follow them. But there's something almost right about that. Because you consider how many points they got in the championship.
96.
Ahead of everyone else.
96. 96 and you don't win the league. It's incredible.
Absolutely. It's very similar to the Wrexham Notts County story, isn't it?
It was Lee Gregory just dummied it. And it was fantastic. Fellas just tucked it away.
He scored the second goal as well, didn't he, Gregory?
Yeah. He didn't score, he just dummied it for this boy to run on and score.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar really with the players. I know some of the Sheffield Wednesday players. But there's a reunion tonight at the Devonshire Arms. And,
is there?
Yeah, the Carlton Palmer's up there, Terry Curran. Oh God, there's quite a Roger Wild. Roger's up there as well. Roger had organised it. So they're gonna be going balmy in that pub. And I'm doing my stuff with Terry. I really hope that Sheffield can pull it off and get promoted. Far too big a club to be in that third tier of English football.
Oh, goodness,
what else have you got, mate?
So I said I'd balance it. So that was a Rangers one, and then there was a Celtic book that came out, and what a job he's done there. And here we go. I'll go with it. Postologio?
That one. Everybody knows.
Yeah, Ange. Everyone knows who Ange is.
Tippy and Ange.
So this one was written just before his obviously latest title. It was written came out in March, and it's called Never Stop, and how Ange brought the fire back to Celtic. So it's a great backstory to the guy, and I've seen I saw an interview with him, and I love the story about how he grew up. He grew up in Greece, and at a young age, I think it was his mum and his dad wanted a better life and took him to Australia. He tells a story about how he was he's very grounded in terms of his way of brought up. Talks very much about his mum and dad, how they really had to, work hard, etc. He takes everything he's doing now is just, it's so much easier compared to the life of his parents had. But I digress. But basically, it's a story about the remarkable season when it came along, because obviously Rangers had just won the title, and they made it 55.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
And then Ange came in when Celtic was a bit of a turmoil, and took them to win the title in 21-22, and then won the League Cup as well. So it's about his employment. So a great one there.
Everything this year and all, to be fair.
For Celtic, I think they are. They're on 2 already, are they? I think.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Pretty much up there. They're by far and away the strongest side, aren't they, against Celtic?
Yeah.
Stevie Gerrard
Yeah,
done well at
absolutely.
Rangers, to be fair. I think he doesn't get the credit really that he deserves
Yeah,
for what he
absolutely.
actually done up there at Rangers. But yeah, Ange's
Yeah.
really turned the Celtic
Yeah.
around. Of course, the first British team to win the European Cup, and one of
Yes.
two. I think I'm right in saying only two European sides that have won what I perceive to be a true treble. So that means when you, in old money, when Celtic won the European Cup, you had to win your league. It's the only way that you could play. Forest when you played. Second time you didn't win the league, but you went in there as champions of Europe. So
go on, sorry.
No, so for me, the Champions League is different now because you have four from England. You shouldn't. You should only have the one. It should be the European Cup, the UEFA Cup, and the Cup Winners' Cup.
Yeah.
That's the way
absolutely.
that I look at football. I don't. And there are three great books by Stephen Scragg that talks about the three competitions. And I wish that it still was. But Celtic and Ajax both won the cup, the FA Cup. The Dutch Cup. I think it was the 72-73 season, I think, with Ajax, where they'd won the league, because, again, Ajax are one of them that they didn't have to win the league, the Dutch league, because they were European champions. They won it three seasons on the trot. And you got the great Feyenoord team that was round there in Holland at the time, who won the European Cup in 1970. So, Dutch football was really on the up. And I think I'm going to that leads us nicely into a podcast I've done recently with Gary Thacker, Dutch Masters, which comes out on the 22nd of May, 4 days' time. So I'm looking forward to that book. And Gary's always good fun, font of knowledge, and also the author of Beautiful Bridesmaids Dressed in Orange. So and part of these Football Times with Stephen and many other authors and journalists at that wonderful. They do a publication, don't they? They do magazines, they write books, and they make some fantastic podcasts as well, these Football Times. So well done, guys.
Yeah, no, great. I'm looking forward to that one. Yeah, it comes out on Monday, and what a great author Gary Thacker is. So I've communicated a few times with him via email and Twitter, etc.
He's a good lad, I like
DMs.
Gary.
Yeah, he certainly knows his stuff, doesn't he? So,
Chelsea fan.
Yes, he is. Yeah, he wrote the book into out of the blue. Yeah. I remember listening to your podcast you did with Gary on that book as well. So it was great.
Yeah.
I must admit, I didn't realise until I heard that part. I don't know why. I thought he was a Birmingham fan. I'm not sure what.
He's from Warsaw.
I thought that.
He's from Warsaw.
He's from where?
Yeah, Warsaw.
That's why I thought. Yeah, that's it. That's it. When I heard him firstly, for some reason I thought he was. Yeah, never realised he was a Chelsea fan. Warsaw.
And then he fell in love with Chelsea, and it was quite easy to do back in his day, because the swinging 60s and the King's Road, etc. And he got into Chelsea and has been a Chelsea supporter ever since. But and also a fan of Dutch football. So two great books, Dutch Masters. And I'll tell you what, two iconic covers as well. Both out by pitch. And the people at pitch that do the covers are different gravy. They have some fabulous covers. I love the covers. Great.
Yeah, absolutely. That cover, I've got it literally in front of me, so I was gratefully received the book as well. So I'll be doing a feature of that in the coming days ahead of its release on Monday. It's just I love the use of the colours in that great old red down the middle. Yeah. On the Ajax. It's it's just so recognisable, and it's just brilliantly captured. But
iconic, and I don't think people realise. I mean, the Eredivisie didn't start till the mid-50s. Until Rinus Michels took over at Ajax. Ajax were an amateur club. The game in Holland was an amateur game, and the first professional that Ajax signed was Piet Keizer, and Johan Chriis was the second. So, Gary goes through all that in the podcast and talks us through the wonderful Ajax side that conquered Europe with, again, total football, in the early 70s. Fantastic.
Yeah, and what? Because you were talking about the Champions League. I got in a bit of debate with someone who's a Man City fan, and talk about a Champions League. And okay, they win the league, so they can be classed as a champion. But it's just, isn't it? I find it most bizarre. It's not spoken about more. Why it's still called the Champions League?
It's
you could finish fourth and third, and you go into but it's not Champions, is it? It's not Champions League.
It's the European.
The name is.
It's the European Super League by stealth.
Yeah.
But they've never had the balls to call it the European Super League because of all the that surrounds it and the breakaway of the European Super League. But that's what it is.
Absolutely. It's driven down the likes of Ajax. As Ajax, they could still compete now, but they can't because of the money because the second and third and fourth teams in the Premier League are getting all this money domestically, and because now they qualify, that's why Ajax is just falling back and back and back. No fault of theirs. It's just because the Dutch league is not as big as the English league, but when you competed against just one country to another country, they stood a better chance, didn't they, of winning?
Yeah, I mean that's why they won the European Super League. You look at the big players at Juventus and in Spain, Madrid, etc., and Barcelona. They know that in their domestic leagues they cannot compete with the Premier League. It's impossible. I mean, I think Leicester are one of the most richest clubs in Europe. But I mean, they're so far in debt. So when you look at what they're actually earning, but then when you look at what their debt is and the debt that they carry, it's incredible. But I think if you look at the richest clubs in Europe, most of them are actually Premier League sides.
Oh, yeah.
But aren't particularly very big Premier League sides. But because they're in the Premier League, they're earning all this money. So the Europeans know that the only way that they can compete, bringing in better players, is by having the European Super League and having the competition on a level playing field.
Yeah,
but, watch this space. I think we're in exciting times.
No, so it doesn't. We'll never be. Well, I'm not sure it'll ever go back, will it? But
no, sadly.
But it does sound quite nice. Yeah, with that Dutch Masters, it's great to remember those great teams, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And absolutely great author as well. Is Gary.
Absolutely.
Excellent. I will then just segue. I suppose around about that area as well. There's a book that came out just this time last week. It's The 3 Lives of the Kaiser.
Just looking at it.
Excellent.
Not the book, but the line. Yeah, the line. Yeah, Ulysses. We talked about that on the podcast this week with Terry. It's one that I'm ticking off as you're talking about it. As Conquerors, we're on my list here as well. But, I mean, The 3 Lives of the Kaiser. I mean, what a life in football.
Oh, wow, yeah, absolutely. I love the front cover, by the way, on that book as well. I think it's lovely how it's been put together with the German flag. So,
Is it with Pitch?
No, it's not. It is with Simon and Schuster.
Okay.
So they do. They're a big,
as well.
Yeah, they're good. They're a big book publisher of for loads of fiction books as well, etc. They're very big. They do football books as well. But really big publisher they are. But it's through them. Great cover, yeah. So. I know you think of Pitch. It does look like one of those Pitch kind of covers, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So, But Uli Hess, a wonderful writer. He's written some incredible books. The one that sticks out for me, 2 great books, actually, 2 books. One was called Tor, T-O-R.
Okay, yeah.
German for goal. Yeah, the story of German. Absolutely brilliant read, really brilliant read. He won loads of awards. And he wrote another book, obviously German football, called Building the Yellow Wall, and it was about the incredible rise and the cult appeal of Borussia Dortmund, which again won a Football Book of the Year award. So there's certain authors like Uli-S, it's going to be a cracking read straight away. So he'll appeal to lots of people. Whatever he wrote, to be frank, he's one of these great. To me, he could write a great shopping list. Somehow.
I'd like a book.
I'd want to read it.
I'd like a book on Gunter Netzer.
Yes, yeah.
But I don't think there's anything that's out there in English about the great Gunter Netzer. But again, it's like that. Would it sell in this country? lots of people know of Beckenbauer because of his time, not just as a player, but as a manager. Probably not as much for the NASL, although I do as a member of the Cosmos. But, his name, I suppose because his name was put on football boots as well, so his name carries a lot more weight than Gunter Netzer, but what a player Gunter Netzer was, and a shame that there isn't a book in English on the great Gunter Netzer. But
perhaps that's your next project, Paul.
I can't write. I can't.
Paper.
I can't write. It takes me as long to write a book as to read it. The 12th of November.
I always give you mentioned. I remember a couple of podcasts ago. There's never been a book written about the League Cup, hasn't there?
Yes.
So as far as I'm aware, so that's still someone out there listening.
Rob Carlett has written that. I believe it's coming out next year.
I
believe it's coming out next year. So I should be doing
exclusive.
Doing a podcast with Rob about that book. In fact, I know it's coming out because during the 70s, I said to him, Alan played in the 72 Cup final. Jim McCalliard played. Did he? No, was it? No, it wasn't Jim because he played in the FA Cup, wasn't it? But I went through the John McGovern. That was it. John played in the 78. Didn't they? League Cup when they Forest won. And through my podcast, I've gone. Do you know Kenny Ibbett scored the goal at Wembley in what was it 74? And I says, I could probably get you a player from every year in the 70s that they actually played in the final of the League Cup. So lots of players. Steve Perryman, I think Steve has done something for it as well. But there's lots of players that I've interviewed that have contributed to the book. So it's going to be a cracking read when it comes out sometime next year.
Excellent. Before we move on with Friends Beckenbauer, I was looking at his, because I knew I was going to mention it, and I thought you'd mention it as well. So if you look at some of the, his title, he won the Bundesliga, this is a player and as a manager with Bayern Munich. He won it as a player with Hamburger. He won the I think you mentioned the NASL, North American League with the New York Cosmos. He won the World Cup as a player and as a manager. He won the league, I didn't realise this one, so I forgot. He won Ligue 1 with Marseille as a manager.
Okay.
UEFA Cup in 1996, Ballon d'Or twice, runner-up twice. The list goes on and on. Just how many trophies? It's just unbelievable. It's like you could fit in probably 20 careers. There's not won that many. He won
career
as a player and manager. So really, I'm looking forward to that. There, the 3 lives of him. We've already mentioned the Forgotten Cup, haven't we, by Joe Raff, so that was one of the books that I've been sent recently. One that came out recently, been sent, is 60 Years of the World Cup.
Yeah, I've got that.
That's by Brian Barwick. Yeah, excellent. So it's basically looking at he had a stint, didn't he, as the CEO of the FA.
Yes.
Which brought me a unique experience, really, being associated with some of the trials and tribulations trying to win the World Cup. So, it's about his 60-year relationship with football's greatest prize. And he witnessed many of the great famous games. I think it starts back from 1962 in Chile, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Some of the iconic kind of controversial moments that you've seen throughout that time. So, he's well known, Brian Barwick, as you'll know, as at OBE, I should say as well. Well known in broadcasting and sport, and he worked for BBC Sport for a Match of the Day editor for about 18 years, I think it was.
Right.
So, so that's 60 Years of the World Cup, Reflections on the Football's Greatest Show on Earth. That came out recently. Another book, I think you just mentioned it, did you? I think 1977, 78?
Yes, Rangers.
So,
yeah,
that's it, Rangers. So that's the historic season of Rangers FC and the treble that ended an era. So, it's written by a gentleman called David Hurd. And it tells the story of a historic season for Rangers on and off the pitch. So John Craig was captain, wasn't he? So at the time.
Absolutely. There's a funny story actually with Kenny Burns and Joe Gallagher. Ken was reading something, and Joe was talking about the great Rangers legend John Craig, and he said no, it's John Gregg, and he said
John Gregg, yes,
he says John Craig. He said no, it's John Gregg. He says John Craig, and he said after that, and Kenny Burns had butted him in the back of the head. and there was a punch up with Kenny and Joe on the bus, Birmingham City players. But that was Kenny Burns, because Kenny's a massive Rangers fan. Mr. Corinthian, P.A. Jackson, and the Casual Corinthians by Lou Walker.
Yes.
That looks like a good book, the Corinthians.
Yeah, well, famous club they were, weren't they? In the early part of the team, quite very unique, really.
Absolutely.
in terms of that story. So now it's fascinating. It's coming out by, I don't remember the author.
Lou Walker.
That's it, Lou Walker. He wrote also a book on Andrew Watson. You might remember a couple of years ago, I think it was.
Yeah, got that
book. You remember that one then. So, but
black lad, wasn't he?
That's it. Correct. That's it. So yeah, that looks fascinating. It's the first ever biography of the guy. It's based on his pa, I think is his nickname, was it? Nicholas Lane Jackson. He was the founding father of the famous Corinthian Football Club. So fascinating, because this Lou Walker obviously done lots of research. But it's the team of the amateur gentlemen that was a phenomenon, weren't they, in the game's early years? They achieved victories over FA Cup winners, league champions.
Yeah.
The players twice comprised the whole of the England national team. Won overseas tours, they introduced games to countries, later become footballing powers. So I mentioned right at the start, didn't I, about origin stories by Chriis Lee, which is where pioneers took football to the world. That's very much what the Casual Corinthians did. Incredible story. The way they transported football over that time.
And over to Brazil, the Corinthians, of course, in Brazil.
South America. Massive.
Leads me to another book that I've noticed on your sites, your socials. Flamengo, winning all the cups, Stephen Browne.
Yeah.
Stephen's wrote a few books. His name is familiar with me. Yeah,
he has. Yeah, he's written, I think he wrote a book on the Boca Juniors, actually.
Okay.
If I remember rightly, so a couple of years back. Yeah, that's again coming out through Pitch Publishing. I'm trying to remember, I think it's in July. So yeah, Flamengo winning all the cups. So they've got great history, haven't they? They beat, I'm trying to remember, they beat in the Intercontinental Cup, wasn't it? It was that one.
They certainly played Liverpool. Liverpool beat them, didn't they? In that game, I believe. Through memory. But, the great Zico played for Flamengo, didn't he?
Yes.
Flamengo. Flamenco's a dance. Flamengo is the football club in Brazil. They play at the Maracanã, don't they? Flamengo.
Do what, sorry?
They play at the Maracanã, don't they?
Oh.
Or I'm sure they used to.
They might have.
They've got a connection with the Maracanã. Another one, the Fluminense, that they've got sort of Vasco da Gama. They got some great football clubs, of course, Santos that Pelé played. Football's Poetic License by Joe Morris. That looks quite interesting. I think there's some football poems in that book.
Okay.
I have to buy that. I've written a few myself.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one actually. Who's that by? Sorry, Paul.
It's by Joe Morris.
Joe Morris.
Yeah,
okay.
Joe's been quite prolific on social media, trying to promote his book, etc. So I have noticed that book. Another book that I've noticed on your sites, Galvanised by David Safer. David's written a load of Leeds United books in the past, hasn't he? This one about Galvanised, about the Galvin, Tony and his brother.
Yeah, that's it. The Chris and Tony Galvin, wasn't it? So, two footballing brothers with contrasting fortunes who played in the golden age. Tottenham Hotspur. Tony Galvin played for Tottenham Hotspur. I think he joined from the non-league
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
from Inter, something like that. Yeah, but he went on. Obviously, won the FA Cup, UEFA Cup with Spurs, alongside Glenn Ozzy Ardiles, etc. As well as he was Ireland, wasn't he? Republic of Ireland, because I remember he played at Euro '88.
Yeah.
And played at Sheffield Wednesday.
And a great book. A great book out. Spurs 1981, about winning the FA Cup in 1981.
Yeah, I showed that recently.
Yeah, I know Steve's had a lot to do with that book. Who actually wrote it? It was that lady, isn't it, that has written a number of Spurs books? Yeah,
really prolific, very, very famous, certainly in Spurs Tottenham circles. Dame Judy Welsh.
Yeah, that's it.
She's a prolific writer on all things Tottenham. So, so I think it's a collaboration. I think there's a number of people that contribute, but certainly Steve Perriman's one of them, alongside Judy Welsh. Yeah, she's written loads of books. I remember one of the great books she wrote with a guy called Rob White. It was called The Ghost. It was a story about his dad,
John White.
A legend called John White.
I've got that. It was
tragically killed by Bolton Lightning, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was on the golf course, wasn't he? It was on the golf course, wasn't he? Was he on the golf course when he got struck by lightning?
I think it was. Yeah, that seems to ring a bell. Yeah, tragic though, wasn't it? It was just everyone had a story about him.
But part of the double winning side, wasn't he, John White?
He was, absolutely, on the Bill Nicholson. So, 81. That's the inside story of the FA Cup victory, isn't it? So,
absolutely.
And it, what a goal that was, wasn't it? Ricky Villiers. I can still think of the commentary now, can't you?
I just
Ricky Villiers.
Yeah, I just ripped my neck. I thought he was like watching the game. I thought, when did it score again? When you said, what a goal. I mean, it looks like they're going to run out of time. There's 30 seconds left. And they're winning 3-0, so I don't think there's going to be time. But I think if you...
That's almost heartbreaking, isn't it?
Well,
it's so close.
Yeah, I think when you get beat 4-0 in the first game, it just leaves a little bit too much to do. They've done the best, but I think they're just going to run out of one goal. But there you go.
Hopefully they'll recover.
And we're going to be running out of time shortly, sir. So what else have you got? What's on the horizon? What's coming out? And what's going to be your book of choice for your foreign holiday this year?
Well, certainly I'm looking forward to the Frank Beckenbauer one that we've mentioned. There's a few books I'll give a shout out that's coming up that'll be really interesting. It's due out in July. It's been moved a few times, but it's by Stuart Horsfield at Spania 82. So it was due to be published last year, but I think it's been moved back a couple of times. Not sure the reasons why, but that's coming out in July, so I'm looking forward to that. And there's a few others that you'll probably be interested in. It's coming out in August. There's one which is based on the River Plate. We mentioned them earlier.
Yes.
So this is going to be about River Plate. There's been a number of books about Boca Juniors. This one will be based on their great rivals. So that'll be an interesting book that comes out.
Is that going to be
in the summer?
A historical book about River Plate?
Yeah, from what I can see, it will be. It's it's out by Pitch Publishing.
Because they had a famous 5-forward line, didn't they? I mean, I think it might have been in the 30s or the 40s. I mean, way before my time, but they were really prolific. I remember reading something briefly about them some time ago, so that'll be a good read. Yeah,
absolutely. It comes out in August. I'm just looking at it here. So
oh my God, they've just scored.
Have they really?
They have just scored the 4th goal in the 97th minute. Hillsborough is going mad. Curran will be going balmy. Colton Palmer will be going balmy. They'll be going absolutely crackers in that bar. I might give him a call in a bit.
I bet, I don't blame you. I'm looking forward to extra time. I'm not in front of my TV, so I'm looking at the BBC Sport every now and again. They must be as we're talking.
Jesus wept.
Wow, that's incredible, isn't it?
4-0 extra time.
I heard Adrian Durham. He's a Peterborough fan, isn't he? On Talk Sport. I'm sure I heard him yesterday or the day before talking about he's still not confident. It was right, wasn't it?
Imagine if there was VAR and they disallowed this. You would be going balmy, wouldn't you? But no. It's Flint down on the far post. Looks as is it Gregory again?
A hat-trick.
Let's just have a quick look at things. No, it wasn't Lou Gregory. No, it was.
Wow.
No, one. It was Palmer, I think. I think it was Palmer, the back that scored it. Yeah, but 4-0,
wow.
blimey. Yeah. So what else have you? The look of shock on these people.
If they win the league, they win that league. There'll be a book coming out about that. I'm sure there'll be one. There'll be penned by Richard Crooks, is a prolific writer, a big Sheffield Wednesday fan. Yeah, he did Grandad's 70s, 60s. He'll probably write a book about this.
90s. Yeah.
Yeah, we could play this podcast back when we talked about it.
Because it has been a historic season for Wednesday. They've amassed more points than they've ever. They've won more games than ever. They've done everything. And to go up through the playoffs now, if they can, would just be the icing on the cake. So, good luck to Sheffield Wednesday in extra time. So, I'm going to be sitting down and watching this. Well, I've been watching it with one eye on it and, my mind focusing on our podcast here. So, finally, then, what else have you, Ferguson?
Yeah, I'll mention two others then that's coming out, because I mentioned August, so a couple others are coming up. So, there's one that's based on Liverpool and the Dalglish years called The King Takes Over.
Oh, good.
So it's about Dalglish from 85 to 1991. So
that would be good.
I'm sure that'll be a great story, and it'll obviously be tragic as well.
Yes.
They would talk about Hillsborough and probably examine some of the circumstances around the Heysel, etc. Obviously, that was in 85, but that'll be coming out. What a player he was, wasn't he? Kenny Dalglish, what a player. When they talk about Salah, etc. But yeah, Kenny Dalglish, Ian Rush, that kind of era, wonderful, weren't they? John Barnes.
I would say that Rush and Kenny are the greatest front two that I've seen. And you're right, when people go on about, this Liverpool team, I've said before, I don't think there's probably one player, and I like Liverpool, I think they're a good team, but I don't think there's one player in this current Liverpool team that gets into an all-time Liverpool side.
No,
you ain't getting Kenny Dalglish or Russian shirt. I'm sorry, none of you are. You're good, you're brilliant players, but don't think you're that good.
No, I'm a Forest fan, as you know, but I must admit, when you're watching it, because you're coming up against Ian Rush, you thought, oh my God, he's just going to score. He was that prolific, what a player. They've had some strikers, haven't they, down the years, but Rush has got to be up there. Yeah. The last one I'll mention, and that comes out in August, I'm looking forward to that, so it's called Answered Prayers. It's about England of the 96 World Cup, and you might think, another World Cup story about England. But it's the fact it's written by a guy called Duncan Hamilton. Now, Duncan Hamilton might be a name you're familiar with. He's done some wonderful books. The best one for me is Provided You Don't Kiss Me by Brian Clough. Yeah. So he's a wonderful author. And again, he's one of these that can put a pen to paper. But I've looked at the synopsis of that. And it's about very answered prayers. So it'll be very much about the whole kind of feeling around at the time. And I'm sure we'll go in much more detail and give a fresh new approach on the history about it and what it meant at the time, etc. So, but again, he's one of those authors, isn't he? A bit like something I mentioned, but that'd be a good one. Yeah, comes out in August, and that's out through a publisher called River Room.
So, what's your holiday read? What are you going to be reading?
Probably that one. Yeah. Well, yeah, around about that. When's my next holiday? So I've just come back from a break. So it'll be one of them, probably, more than likely. My next one on is I mention one more because I've got it next week. Is When Dave Went Up, and it's the inside story when Wimbledon won the FA Cup in '88.
Okay.
So by Gary Jordan, who's wrote a number of books. So the crazy angle, wasn't it? So one of the great stories, wasn't it, when the FA Cup, when it really matters.
Fantastic, Andy. Thanks again for your time. Thanks for listening, guys. And thank you for the writers that are writing these wonderful publications and the publishers so that we can read about the great times of the beautiful game. So I'll leave it with you, the final word.
Yeah, happy reading, everyone.
Absolutely. Cheers, mate.
Take care, all the best, everyone.
Ta-ra,
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.